First off, I just want to start off by saying that this is not a negative video on Alex Hormozi. I'm not trying to dog anybody. You can see I've made great videos on this guy before. And so it's none of that. And I admire him as an entrepreneur. I've read his books, $100 million offers, applied it to my business and started printing a lot of money. Basically took a 6-month program, turned it into a 3-month program, and still kept the same price. So literally my profit margins doubled from his advice and the book. And he was very generous to me when I had a dinner with him. I forget what state I was in, but I did. He invited 3 entrepreneurs. I was lucky enough to be one of them, and I had dinner with him, and he was very hospitable. So I just want to preface it with all of that to say that I'm a huge fan and I learned a lot from him and there is a lot of value. Now, with that said, I want to say certain things that I think were confusing to me, and maybe that's not his intention, but these things to me were contradictory and gave me, I was trying to like follow. I think a lot of us do that, where Alex Hormozi is like the person that we try to model and follow in business, and we try to take what he's saying and the lens he looks at the world with. But there are certain things that felt contradictory to actually what he's saying compared to what is actually happening or what he has actually done. So for example, one of the things that I was thinking about the other day, I was talking with my girlfriend too. Alex Hormozi always, talks about power of like staying consistent and just stay in one part of the business and do that over a very, very, very long period of time. Okay, well, great. But then how come if you look at the moves he's made in his businesses, multiple businesses, there are a lot of pivots? Because what it sounds like is, hey, don't quit. At least this is how I've taken it, right? And maybe I've taken it wrong and maybe I'm the idiot here, which is fine. You could tell me and I'll learn from you. But like the way that I took it is like, I just keep doing the one thing just forever and just keep incrementally getting better at it until I have no more competition. However, I felt like I was running a business. I was running a digital online course business, and it was just like I was not getting the returns I wanted. And there were definitely, I wasn't growing exponentially, and I wasn't having these breakthroughs. And the revenue at some point became profitable and it just started going down and down. And then the more effort I put in, I didn't get back more results. And I was just like, should I just keep going? But from his advice, it's like, yeah, I should keep going. But in reality, it just wasn't working for me. So I'm like, fuck this, I'm going to pivot. I pivoted and I went to sponsorship. I went from high ticket model to a sponsorship model. And like overnight, within 3 months, we closed $1.5 million in 3 months for our business. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, like the pivot was actually the right thing for me to do. And I think that he maybe doesn't mention pivoting enough. And so it just seems like it shouldn't be a thing. But I feel like as entrepreneurs, we need to know that that's a thing and we should be able to do it, and we should have permission to do it, and we should actually be encouraged to do it. And let's look at, like, if I look at Alex Hormozi's own life, think about it like this, right? Alex Hormozi, how did he get into Gym Launch? Well, before he was actually like having his own franchise and running his own business. So by his own logic, he should have been just consistently growing that franchise gym business for eternity, right? Like for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years until he was the best at it, better than anybody. But that's not actually what happened. He ended up selling it, made about 200, 300K off the sale of that. And then he decided, I'm going to try this Gym Launch thing where I'm going to go and physically help these gyms. Then he went, so that's a pivot in my mind. That's a different type of offer. This is completely different than what you're doing. One is you're trying to grow your own business. The other is you're trying to grow other people's business. Those are it's like if Mr. Beast was like, instead of growing my own YouTube channel, I'll just help grow other people's YouTube channels. So then Alex goes and helps other people grow their gyms, right? But then at some point what happens is he gets a fuck ton of refunds and he goes to $0 and then he goes negative $150,000, which is all mentioned in his book. So now he's like in negative money, right? Negative $150,000. And so now he's broke, right? So he's already done one pivot where he pivoted from franchise to trying to sell other people on their own gym offers. It's pivot number one. Then he felt like he failed. So then he did a pivot number two into Layla's thing. So he went to Layla and he said, hey, how about we scale your offer and do your thing? And then he tried and tweaked that. And then that was like kind of working, but not really that much. And then he goes back to his own thing. And while he's dialing the phone, letting all his gym launch customers know he won't be doing that anymore, they're like, hey, how about you do a model where you just like, he just tries to sell them on like, they're like, instead of coming in person and doing this for us, why don't you just teach it to us? And then he sells them over the phone and be like, I don't have to come to you and you'll still pay me $6,000. And they're like, yeah. And then some people pay him $8,000 and $10,000. So in my mind, that's a third pivot. And then he then goes into that. And once that offer works and he makes $60,000 in one day, that's when he goes, I think this is the thing we're doing now. And he goes all in 1,000,000%. But if you look at all of this, right, you would never guess it from what is actually said by him on social media, which is just like, do one thing, do it forever, don't change it, get it better than everybody else. And he's so adamant about it. But I just don't think that's the truth. That's not actually what happened in his life. He kept pivoting over and over and over again. And his third pivot led to a pot of gold. And then he went all in and just scaled the fuck out of that. But after he found something, by testing a lot of different things, something that worked, and then he went all in. But I think other entrepreneurs, including myself, at least for me, maybe I'm dumb, I started taking it as, this doesn't matter whether it works or not. Just keep fucking going harder and harder and harder. And the answer is like harder and increment more and learn more and just keep doing more in the same thing that I'm doing. But sometimes I think the answer is to pivot and actually do a different thing, right? Because if you keep expounding that thing out, it's like, okay, then why pivot and launch Alan? And then why pivot and launch a supplement company? And then why Prestige Labs, right? Then why pivot and launch acquisition.com? I just feel like he's learning different things. He's testing different things. And then whichever one yields the biggest results, he keeps leaning into that and going into that. And I think that's a much more natural way for people to do business. And I feel that that part is missing from the messaging. So I don't know. Again, maybe I might be just a little, weak in the head and operating on a few brain cells. And again, I am. Compared to Alex Hormozi, I don't make as much money as him. I'm not even close to him. Like, I make 7 figures per year. I don't make fucking 9 figures or whatever number he's making, 10 figures, 20 figures per year. So I'm not saying that we have the same level of business skills. I'm just saying, I think for entrepreneurs, we need to oftentimes be given permission to make mistakes and try new things. But when we hear this message, I don't know, for me at least, it felt suffocating. It was like, even if you hate this fucking business, even if you don't see if this is going to be the best business for you, since this is a thing you've spent the most time in, just keep doing this thing. And I feel like it should be okay to pivot and change things and go all in once you see some results coming in from a thing. And then it makes sense to go double, triple, quadruple, quintuple down and just go like 100x. Because again, I think that's the life of an entrepreneur. That's all we're trying to do, right? If no matter what a lot of these rich people say who have made a lot of money, I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to make as much money as possible as entrepreneurs. We're trying to make as much money as possible ethically in the shortest amount of time possible with the least amount of effort. That's it. Now, you could call it fancy things. You could call it leverage, which is what a lot of folks call it, right? Having more leverage. Leverage is just, what's the point of leverage? So you could do more with less effort, right? That's the entire point of leverage. And so I think we're all trying to make a lot of money with the most amount of leverage. And we are trying to do it fast. Even if we say, don't try to make money fast or don't do it fast, we are trying to make money fast, right? If Alex Hormozi makes $1 million per month, and if I used to make $100,000 per year, but then I eventually scaled it up to $1 million per year, I am making money fast. And so we all are trying to do that. Long story short, some of it I'm just ranting. But long story short, I feel like I really love his messaging and everything he says. Again, I love his work, but I think there's certain things that I think should be clarified more. And he speaks with so much confidence and conviction, and the dude has such a fucking crazy epic track record that you're just like, whatever he's saying is fact and there's no other way. But there is another way, and there are many other ways. He interviewed Dave Ramsey, and Dave Ramsey makes more than him. He makes $300 million a year. But Dave Ramsey does it in a different way with education products. And Dave Ramsey's technique to growing more products is just he tests out so many different products. And then whichever one takes off, he goes all into that. Right? So everybody has a different way to view it. All I'm saying is like, no, just don't make any one person your guru and just idolize them, because it'll tunnel vision you. How Alex made his millions and his fortune isn't how you or I are going to make it. Everybody's journey is going to be very, very different. Times are different. Our industries are going to be different. And while there are lessons at a macro level that we can take and apply within the day-to-day things that we're doing, sometimes the tactics that we might have to make or tactics that we do might have to be different. And so at some point, you have to listen to your gut and know when it's time to pivot, because it's not always time to persevere. With that said, I love your face. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.